Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and this promises to be an interesting session. We have all the panelists on time, so we are ready to go. The topic, as you would have noticed, is quite long, as if thriving in an imbalanced world is not difficult enough. They're saying not only should we thrive in an imbalanced world, but it should be inclusive. If that's not bad enough, it has to be sustained. Okay, so there are only two choices. One is just throw up your arms and say that not possible and walk out, or attempt something. So we decided that we'll attempt something in that area. We have a diverse panel here, people representing different parts of the economy, different interest groups, etc. So before I get started, I'll probably spend about 3 or 4 minutes just not really setting the context, give my perspective, because each one is going to give their perspective from the industry they come from. They'll spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes, give that perspective, and then we'll allow each one of them one more round to react what was said by the other panelists, and then open it up to questions. We really want to have as many comments, questions, and opinions from the audience as we can handle before we run out of time. So I assure you we'll make it as short as possible. Let me start by talking about inclusive growth and sustainable growth in an imbalanced world. And let me also make one more comment. All the people who talk and the reports that you have seen always look at the past data, the past industry, and say this is how things have been, this is how things were managed in the past. And nobody really talks about, so what does it mean for me as I look ahead into the future? Is there something that we can learn? Certainly there are several things that we can learn, but how do I apply it? Is a big question. So that's something that I'm going to attempt. It's something, there is some theoretical work that has happened in that space. So we'll just explore that a little bit. First and foremost is for inclusive and sustainable growth, this is something that you have to accept as a given. Innovation is one of the key things. New ideas, new ways of doing things, new applications is clearly an important way of creating new value, creating inclusiveness. And the new values are created in today's context with technology as an underpinning, which is something that we have all seen. Technology everywhere. Technology is entering classrooms where interesting educational aspects are delivered through the current modern day technology that's available. Plenty of examples. Given that, let's look at convergence and innovation. Innovation and convergence. Convergence is where multiple things, multiple industries, sub-industries get together to create innovative opportunities. The best example that we have, that everyone talks about, everyone has understood that well, is the convergence of technology, communications, media, and entertainment. So much so the industry which was an IT industry became an ICT industry, then it became IME, then some people called it TMT, meaning technology, media, and telecommunication. Now it's called TIME. Telecommunication, information technology, media, and entertainment. An enormous amount of value has been created in this space, in this converged world, and nobody really knew about how this convergence happened. But it has happened. Inclusiveness has come about because of time. Sustainability has come about because of time, because of this convergence, and because of all the innovation that's happening here. Now, there are researchers who have looked at it and said there are some broad concepts that are available as far as innovation in the converged space is concerned. Now, this is work done by Swiss professor, Dr. Frederick Hacklin, who says there are four steps or 4 ways things happen. First and foremost is there is a knowledge convergence that happens. Knowledge in one space is applied in another space or finds relevance in another space or in another industry segment. Then there is a technology convergence. Convergence in terms of, it could be in terms of artifacts or pure underlying technology. Artifacts is something that we can understand very clearly. There was a Walkman or an iPod, there is a phone, combine the two artifacts combination. There is a camera and there is a phone that is combined. There is a communication device that is combined. And so artifact or technology convergence leads to new opportunities. Third one is the application convergence. All this is fine, but there must be some value that is created for the firm, for the people, in order for it to be sustainable. Yes, you can provide inclusiveness and sustainability if the value is generated at the appropriate price point, which is the third element of convergence and convergence innovation. And the last item, of course, is the industry convergence. Nobody really talks about, or very soon, people will not talk about IT as a separate industry, communication as a separate industry. It will be a time industry. Now, this theory also proposes that if you look at it that way, there are plenty of convergence opportunities that are available. Theoretically, they've established one. It's called NBIC, which is really the nascent, the nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and the cognitive science called NBIC. But there are several that we see day to day. Example, travel and hospitality. All the sites that you go to book your tickets do hotel, accommodation, and hospitality. And now they combine retail with it. Healthcare and insurance, financial services and healthcare. What was opportunities available at the intersection of industries, there are a lot more opportunities available in the integration of these industries and the convergence. Similarly, there are other examples, manufacturing, logistics, and retail. Nobody looks at it separately these days. It's all a part and parcel. Again, a good old example of Apple, complete integration of manufacturing, the logistics of where something is produced, assembled, and the way it is delivered in a retail store and delivering a superior customer experience. So, plenty of these theoretical frameworks are available with practical examples for all of us to be innovative in order to create inclusive and sustainable growth. So the point that I'm making is, while we have learned from the past, there are good models available for looking into the future, create those type of opportunities, create those innovations in a converged world, and make whatever growth, whether it's in a balanced world or an imbalanced world, sustainable and inclusive. Thank you. I'll stop here and then invite our first speaker, Mr. Sandilya, to present his perspective on the topic. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm just going to be very brief with respect to this thriving in inclusive and sustainable growth in imbalanced world. Originally, I thought it's only imbalanced world, but then I find it's also inclusive and sustainable. Fundamentally, and I think we should understand that, as Mr. Muthuraman said, imbalance has been there for centuries. I don't think it's anything new. But I think what is new is the volatility, but also the speed with which things change. The velocity with which the things change have changed dramatically. Now, I think rightly, in order to get an inclusive development, as Ms. Lakshmi said, that we talk about being very innovative. So agility and innovativeness, people talked about it at large in the morning. I don't want to repeat that. However, talking about inclusive development, I want to focus only on two things. What I think is going to be the fulcrum on which the inclusiveness could take place in the future would be on skills and education. Again, these two areas, and I think we have talked about enough, and I think talking about a country in India and also globally, if you look at it, this is going to be an area where there's going to be tremendous opportunity. If everything is balanced, there is no opportunity. And I think imbalance produces opportunity, but can we use that opportunity to thrive? Can we create businesses out of it? Now, today, education and skill building have thrown up opportunities in a tremendous way. In a small way, our own company is doing some work in this area, but otherwise, I think globally, this is something which can be done. And here, as Mr. Lakshmi said, technology can be used very effectively in propagating the skills and education to large number of people with shortest time and also which is relevant. The second thing which is important in the kind of imbalance we're talking about, the kind of velocity of change we talk about, what we teach, the relevance of what we teach and the kind of skills that we are trying to build has got to be future-oriented, not past-oriented. No point in teaching them skills of what was relevant some 20 years ago, 15 years ago in this country. Base knowledge is important, but what people have to learn is how to use the technology that is going to be available, how the convergence that is taking place is going to be available, how do we use it, how do we make advantages of it, and there is a business opportunity also in doing, using these technology to ensure that we get skills and education developed in this world. I may say, maybe politically not correct, but I think it's important to state it, and I would like to state it. By making reservations, we're not going to achieve the problem. What we need to do is create opportunity for people to give them skills, give them knowledge, things will happen. Just 2 examples I'll give you with respect to what I have been involved in personally, and also one of my friends, recently I met a gentleman who's been involved in it. We, as Ashok said, I'm also involved as the president of SOS Children's Villages of India. Here we have 2 programs out of which one program is on basically helping children to live in their biological families, but help them with education, finance them, fund them for going to schools, colleges, what have you, and help the parents with vocational training so that they can become self-sustainable, self-developed. So I think it's an area where we talk about using this opportunity in the social sector, providing this, because we believe that if they are capable of taking care of themselves in the future with the right kind of skills, I think we will be having inclusive development, and that can help in terms of overall growth of the economy. And the second area, I met a gentleman very recently called George Abraham. He is running an NGO called SCORE Foundation. He is born blind, but he has realized, and he has education with St. Stephen's College. He worked with Ogilvy Mather as an advertising company. He started the foundation, which is basically helping blind people getting rehabilitated in life. He says, don't sympathize with us, we are blind. Give us opportunity, give us the training, we will do very well. And he has set an example, and he is helping people rehabilitate. So much for inclusiveness. Now let me talk about sustainability. Talking about sustainability, again, an area where a lot of innovation is required. And these initiatives have to be both at the company level and at the government level. This is an area where we talk about the 5 elements, Prithvi, Apas, Tejo, Vayu, Rakasha. I have talked about it earlier. We need a balance amongst these 5 elements in the system, in the world. We can do it by focusing on each one of them, not to have any wastage, which can be done at the company level, individual level, as well as the level. This again offers tremendous opportunity business-wise in terms of creating systems using technology to have business opportunities to ensure the economy grows, the company is growing, because there are a number of companies which do this, talk about green buildings and so on. Let me stop here. So I think both from a inclusiveness as well as sustainability, there are opportunities, and if the companies and individuals can take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandilya. I think he brought in 2 key points about education and skill building and the role that technology can play, the intersection of education, skill building, etc. Now we'll turn it over to Shankar Vanavarayar, part of the Shakti group. He's involved in many things, truly a diverse person. He runs educational institutions. He's the executive director of Shakti Auto Motors. He's familiar with sugar production. And most importantly, he's encouraging young entrepreneurs to be far more innovative, and he's leading those activities in Coimbatore. Let's hear from Shankar now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lakshmi. When I got this email and the topic from Mr. Ashok, it was truly a loaded topic. Every word has great significance, and I'm sure all the panelists have felt the same thing, because phenomenal potential to discuss every one of these words. And I'm sure this is worth volumes in terms of thought. I'm also going to go to Darwin, which was discussed even from the minister who spoke from the report, or the BCG report, about adaptability and change. Adaptability and change are the 2 key words that came out in Darwin's quote that was said in the morning. But if you go to the last of the report, there's Einstein again quoted. And I quote, he says, "The world as we have created it is a product of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." It's a very powerful quote to end the whole document BCG has used. And here I want to talk about it in context to our topic and bring in the aspect of the youth of India. And I think that was the logic of having me on this panel, as a person who's worked with youth in terms of education, and also the fact of young Indians, CII as young Indians. If you look about 500 million people, a percentage of humanity, 1 in every 6th person in the world has this aggression, this ambition to be thriving in this world, thriving in this imbalanced world. And if these young people are not inclusive and sustainable in their thought process, and inclusive, I go back to what Ms. Lakshmi said in terms of innovation. Inclusiveness can be dealt, I think, through innovation in the best way, because inclusiveness needs fresh ideas, modern thinking, modern education, and new skills. Extremely important. And sustainable, these people have to be sensitive. The 5 elements was just quoted, and I think it's extremely important. The young people have to be sensitive to things around them. Without this, it's going to be dangerous, because resources are purely not enough. The world does not have enough for our aggression. Gandhiji said it's not enough for our greed, it's there only for our need. So that, in that context, what am I coming to when I thought about what is the missing point or what is that we need? I think what these 500 million people need is direction and leadership. And coming back to Einstein, change of thinking and relating it to innovation. I think these people, these young people, this generation which will make India into from what it is to what it shall be, what it can be, reaching its potential, it's extremely important that we need a direction and leadership. For this, we need the right knowledge, the right kind of ecosystem that we need to provide them. For us, in the last 20 years, if you see, we have seen a great amount of volatility in an economic sense, but I also think in a political sense, in a social sense as well. So now is some amount of correction, some amount of equalizing all this is extremely important to balance it. And here, what Mr. Sandilya just spoke about education, I don't think is in the limited gambit of skills or the knowledge through a course, which we were also discussing in the panel. And Mr. Srikkanth was saying to win, to thrive, to succeed. I think we need to find an Indian formula for this because our problems are truly unique. Of environmental, social, and geographical sense is very, very different. And here we need to get an Indian way. There comes again innovation. So I want to sort of end now by saying, and I'll love to listen to the others as well, but I want to end by saying for the Indian dimension, for the Indian 500 million, we really need to find a new process, a new thought process, and a new way, without which I think we can set wrong examples in sustainability and inclusiveness, because then it's something to face and challenge. So we have an opportunity here and not necessarily a problem. I think we can innovate and find a way for the new Indian way. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. And that was, there's another point around which we can anchor the discussions about the change in the mindset, and more importantly, the millennials, the younger generation. You know, very important to look at them as a group whose aspirations are different, whose expectations from the world are different, whose confidence levels are very, very different, whose velocity is very, very high. And in our industry, we call these millennials as high energy individuals who have the ability to transform. Okay, I'll just give you an example. These are people who have, you know, in the future of work, we talk about this, who have a fantastic experience over the weekend, Sunday evening, working with all the devices, watching a movie, going around with friends. And when they come to work on a Monday morning, the experience in the office is very, very different, very constrained, very restrained. They're not comfortable with that. They want the Sunday evening experience to continue in the office the Monday morning also. Okay. Reasonable or not, that's what the expectation is. Okay. And so the thinking has to change in order to accommodate these high energy professionals who want to change the world. Thank you for bringing that, Shankar. Now let me request Mr. Dilip Cherian, a consulting partner with Perfect Relations, to give his perspective, a very creative person. I'm sure he'll have an entirely different perspective of this imbalanced world.
Thank you, Lakshmi. It's a pleasure to be here, and I come from New Delhi, which normally elicits a kind of Twitter of disrespect amongst people who are listening. But I'm taking this opportunity because I think CII, by discussing this issue and bringing in both the aspects of inclusivity and sustainability, is doing something very brave. Because at the end of the day, corporations don't actually behave like this. It is not in the natural DNA, since we are discussing Darwin, it is not in the natural DNA of corporations to behave in this kind of manner, to be altruistic, okay? Because corporations by essence, and I have been as a business journalist for a large part of my life, and as a spin doctor for both corporations and for political parties, I have been in a rare position of privilege of being able to see it from the inside, and sometimes from the inside talking outwards. So we should not in any sense begin to fool ourselves into believing that thinking altruistically is something that companies will do naturally. And both sustainability and inclusiveness are at their very core altruistic. They are about leaving behind a better society than you got into. Okay? So companies are about changing the world, moving resources from one part of the world into the other, transforming resources from one kind of thing into the other, and ultimately about making profit. It's about making those young people behave like they think they behave on Sundays and turning that into a profit. So if you look at trying to trigger either of these things, there are only two ways to trigger companies into behaving either inclusively or sustainably. And those two ways, to my mind, and I'm saying this with a sense of heaviness, of recognizing reality for what it is. It is not meant to be cynical, but it is meant to take a look at how really companies work and behave. There are only two triggers which would make them behave like this. One is fear, and the other is opportunity. So in terms of fear, what are we looking at? Inclusive growth, as far as the company is concerned, would only be a factor for them if there is a fear of retribution. They would be inclusive if they are worried that the farmers will burn up their fields. They will be inclusive if they believe that Naxalites will shoot their employees. These are triggers for inclusiveness of the kind that we really need to talk about. Otherwise, there is the fear of a government fiat, an order by government. You've got to do this. You've got to employ so many of a particular caste. And those days are also coming. And as you know, Delhi is the center for creating such impulses of fear. The third is the fear that what will global investors say? So this is the kind of fear that makes people in textile factories pay higher wages, so that somebody at the other end of the supply chain does not blow the whistle and destroy your business. So it's quite important to understand that at a base level, corporations must concede that this is one of the factors. As far as inclusiveness in terms of opportunity is concerned, the thesis is a bit well expounded by C.K. Prahlad's fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. So there is a huge opportunity there to sell them, 1 rupee sachets of shampoo, and we know companies who have built similar kinds of product offerings, and inclusiveness therefore gets built into their DNA in some kind of non-altruistic manner. So what I'm saying is, if you're looking at inclusiveness, these are the two triggers. And sadly, the same two triggers actually work where sustainability is also concerned. Even sustainability, unfortunately, is about this. It's about worry, fear, that, we are using up too many resources, not enough for our greed in the future. How do we transmit this into growth? Tomorrow we are working with a very limited resource. Or there's an opportunity that we can be certified as green, and therefore we should produce this product in a globally sustainable, environmentally comfortable kind of situation. Am I being too cynical? I don't think so. Companies also recognize that to survive, they have to generate profit, they have to generate growth, and they have to generate shareholder value. So unless we find ways of transforming these impulses in some way as aspects of corporate functioning and growth and profitability, these will remain on paper, subjects for profound discussions, and not really triggers for everyday action in corporations large and small. So if you want to really do this, it has to begin by thinking differently. Now let's look at thinking it differently. Every corporation, I'm going to be very brief, I'm going to stop just now. Every corporation is by definition a legal entity. As citizens, if we expect our governments, our leaders, our officials, our teachers also to exhibit elements of good citizenry in the way they behave, corporations are actually an aggregation of very large numbers of such individual impulses. So corporations, if they expect the external environment, which is changing very rapidly and which is part of the theme of our discussion, if they expect that the environment will be conducive to their growth, will also have to recognize that as large, powerful citizens of the society that they belong and work in, they too have to demonstrate good citizenship. And this citizenship could be the basis for including impulses such as this, because it actually then turns into profit in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip. And as promised, he was creative and he was provocative also. So we will think about or talk about altruism in the corporate world, and does it come out of fear only as a point. Let me now invite Dr. Vineeta Shankar to present a small video that she has and also to make a 3-minute presentation. Dr. Vineeta Shankar is from Sasakawa, India Leprosy Foundation. And the tagline for that organization is "Working Magic." Let's listen to the magic.
We'll begin with a short film that we've prepared about leprosy affected people, and then I'll take this on forward, please.
आप जैसे हम जैसे हैं आप, काम चाहे हम जिसमें शान हो हरदम।
आप जैसे हम जैसे हैं आप,
काम चाहे हम जिसमें शान हो हरदम। काम ही सम्मान है, काम से ही नाम है।
काम नहीं तो आदमी जीकर भी गुमनाम है।
काम हमारा ख्वाब है, काम ही अंजाम है। हम कुछ हासिल कर सके तो आपकी शान है। काम ही ईमान है, काम ही पहचान है। काम स्वाभिमान है, काम ही वरदान है।
काम हमारा ख्वाब है, काम ही अंजाम है।
हम कुछ हासिल कर सके तो आपकी भी शान है। आप जैसे हम जैसे हैं आप, काम चाहे हम जिसमें शान हो हरदम। काम ही ईमान है, काम ही पहचान है।
काम स्वाभिमान है, काम ही वरदान है।
काम हमारा ख्वाब है, काम ही अंजाम है। हम कुछ हासिल कर सके तो आपकी भी शान है।
आप जैसे हम जैसे हैं आप, काम चाहे हम जिसमें शान हो हरदम।
हमारा काम आपके नाम है, आपकी शान हमारी शान। हमारा काम आपके नाम है, आपकी शान हमारी शान। हमारा काम आपके नाम है, आपकी शान हमारी शान। हमारा काम आपके नाम है, आपकी शान हमारी शान। हमारा काम आपके नाम है, आपकी शान हमारी शान।
I need to switch this. It is working. Thank you. As you've seen from the film, it's not leprosy that is the worst thing. It's a stigma against leprosy which is the killer. So my purpose here today is to persuade you that the stigma is completely unfounded, and also to enroll you to persuade others that the stigma is not needed at all. And if we can do that, we would have taken some steps at creating a more inclusive and participative, empathetic society, something that we've been talking about this afternoon. What I'm going to say, I would like to just say, divide it into 4 portions. One is that first I'll establish a bit of my credentials so that you know that I'm not coming from somewhere and I'm not talking nonsense. And second, I would like to apprise you of what is the situation of leprosy in India and in Indian context as compared to the world, to give an idea as to what really is happening in this area. And then I would like to, actually just 3 points really, and now I'd like to take you on to showing you why stigma is not warranted at all and what can be done about it. So first of all, about Sasakawa India Leprosy Foundation, which I am running. This is despite the name, it is an independent Indian NGO. We're registered with Registrar of Societies in Delhi, and we've been in existence for about 5 years. Our major focus is the empowerment of leprosy-affected people so that we can enable them to lead lives of dignity, which I'm sure you'll agree should be the right of every human being on earth. And what we do is that we help them with skills, with capacity building, with mentorship, and with access to financial resources so that they can start enterprises, micro enterprises on their own. So in a sense, we are helping create entrepreneurs, something that you will understand, I'm sure. But we're creating entrepreneurs with a difference. We're creating entrepreneurs who are looking not only at their profit margins, but where they are looking at ways to earn sustainable livelihoods, but they're also looking at a way to regain lost dignity. Dignity which has been lost because of the severe social stigma that society, and particularly Indian society, metes out to those who have been unfortunate to have been affected by leprosy. We have at the moment, we work all India. We have working in 14 states. We have 118 livelihood projects, ongoing projects, where we provide, as I said, a range of facilities to enable them to stand on their own feet and to be able to run their own enterprises. We also look at training of youths, and finally, we are also engaged in advocacy and spreading awareness about leprosy, which is why I'm here. Just to give you a little context about why are we talking about leprosy, you might well ask, isn't leprosy over and done with? Aren't we through with it all? Unfortunately, that's the impression that the government of India has chosen to give us, its people. We declared ourselves as having eliminated leprosy in 2005. By elimination, it is not meant that we eradicated it, but we brought down the incidence rate to less than 1 per 10,000. This is a landmark achievement, no doubt, because at the time of independence, we had 50 people per 10,000 who were affected by leprosy. So it's no mean task to get this down to less than 1. But unfortunately, what this has done is it has taken away the focus on leprosy, and the Indian government, in its wisdom, took away the vertical program against leprosy and integrated into the public health. As a result of this, we find, unfortunately, and the Indian government has also in fact, questions have been raised in Parliament and answered by the Health Minister that unfortunately leprosy is on the rise. So that today we are actually every year we add 130,000 new leprosy cases in our country. And India is home to 65% of the world population of leprosy. That really does not speak very, very well of us. Plus, of the total global incidence of leprosy in the world, India accounts for 55%. So we are at the peak as far as the world is concerned in terms of incidence of leprosy, and we have a huge task ahead of us if we want to tackle it not only medically, but also socially and economically. And the major hampering and the major stumbling block in effectively handling the situation is the stigma that persists. And this affects not only the acceptance by society, affects not only their integration, but even affects their treatment, because people resist going for treatment for fear that they will be discriminated against, they'll be thrown out of their homes, they'll be abandoned by their families. And we have, for example, the government of India has also done some good things. It's enrolled ASHA and A&M workers to actually look and to help people with leprosy in the villages. And that has helped a lot because women are able to interact with these people and sort of come for treatment. But the stigma prevents them from coming for treatment till it's too late, till disability set in. And afterwards, even when they do get treatment, although the disease is treated, the disabilities cannot be reversed. So if we were able to overcome the stigma, if we were able to eradicate the stigma from our society, we would be in a good position to also eradicate or eliminate the disease, effectively eliminate the disease from our country, like so many other countries have done in the world. So we really need to, this is why we need to spread the word, we need to let people know, we need all of us to know the truth about leprosy and to actually consciously fight the stigma that may be ingrained within us because of whatever, the way we've grown up, the way we've heard things, references, movies, whatever. These are all instilled in each one of us, somewhere at the back of our minds, a sense of, God, maybe there's something to fear. And this is what I want to talk to you about. Leprosy is not a contagious disease. Unlike what is generally believed to be, leprosy is not contagious. It cannot be passed on by touch. And secondly, leprosy is not a hereditary disease. It is caused by bacteria, which is very similar to bacteria that caused tuberculosis. And therefore, often the thought that father and child, mother and child is passed on from parents to children, it does not happen. And which is what makes the discrimination that we mete out to children of leprosy-affected people even worse, because they're not carriers, they're not affected by leprosy, they're not carriers of leprosy, and yet we treat them with the kind of ostracization and rejection that we should not really be meting out to anybody in the world. And so, the third thing about leprosy is that it is unlike what is commonly thought of, it is amongst the least infectious of diseases. It is infectious. This is not I will not deny the fact that it is infectious, but it is mildly infectious and it is less infectious than the common cold. A person who is infected, who can pass on the infection, is a person you will not be able to identify, because the disease has a gestation period of 7 to 40 years. And therefore, you might be walking in a mall, you might be able to get the bacteria. The bacteria might sit in your body till 40 years later, when your immune system, for some unfortunate reason, your immune systems are down, and that is a time you might manifest leprosy. So leprosy is therefore not something that you can say that this person has leprosy, so he will pass it on to me or she will pass it on to me, because people affected by leprosy that you see out on the streets are 99% have been already treated for leprosy. And a person who has been treated for leprosy becomes non-infective within 24 hours of treatment. That means once they start their treatment, within 24 hours, he is no longer capable of passing on the infection, which again means that they can be actually rehabilitated within the community. And therefore, again, there is really no need to reject and to ostracize people who have been affected by leprosy and who have started the cure. And finally, the good news is that it is fully curable. Actually, there are a couple of other good news as well, which is that 95% of us human beings are genetically immune to the disease. So it's amongst the 5% that we're talking about that this disease occurs. And amongst these 5%, we find it occurs much more amongst the uneducated and the poor because they don't have access to the knowledge and the resources to be able to go and get themselves treated and not tell the world about it. So it is possible to get...
Vineeta, can I just finish it in about 30 seconds?
Yes,
Thank you.
less than 30 seconds. So finally, having shown to you that stigma is not needed, is not warranted, and also I would like to point out that it's not only medical, but in the social and economic rehabilitation that we cannot do anything unless we can overcome the stigma. And in order to overcome the stigma, NGOs like us can do only that much. And we need the support of all sections of society. And this is why I am here to ask you to ask for your commitment. If each and every one of us takes it upon ourselves to tell our family, our friends, and people at work that leprosy is safe, it's nothing to be feared, and is not to be stigmatized against, we can change, we can create an empathetic society. And finally, therefore, I request you to please become our goodwill ambassadors for leprosy, spread the word, and to show your commitment, to show that you are convinced, we invite you to please sign a pledge which we put outside, which says, I will fight the stigma against leprosy. Thank you. I'm sorry I overshot my time.
Thank you very much.
Driven, which is again from Western engineering industry. But when we look into the villages, no potable water is available. We talk of solar power, but the villages don't have power at all. Then how can we run a RO plant in a village where there is no power at all? So should the industry not think on balancing the world, looking into the larger sections of life?
Thank you. Good, interesting point. I think we'll collect all these ideas and then pass it to the panelists so that they can react to all of them in one go.
Actually,
Yes, sir.
there is a total imbalance in political system in the last 6-7 years. Do you think that we can survive ourselves?
Oh boy, that's a very loaded question. He talks about the imbalances in the political scenario. I think that's an entirely different aspect that neither any of the panelists nor the cricketer can talk about. So we will move on to the next one. Yes, ma'am.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
right. The message is very simple. Youth, wake up. You can have a good India again. That's what everybody's message. So there is a small problem. We have never had in the last 60 years the outstanding leader devoted to the whole of India. We have been having a division of India, and now it is for us to build up India and also build up the world if we can do a united approach for all the part of a country. That
Thank you. Very good summary. One or two last points, and then I'm going to turn back to the panelists for their last comments.
Yeah, my question is directed at Mr. Dilip, who rightly said that companies by nature do not really display inclusivity or sustainability. So when you say we have to change the thinking, are you suggesting that the government should make sure they plug that hole and stop them from exploiting that opportunity, or the companies should change their inherent objective? Their objective is to actually increase wealth. Are they supposed to change that inherent nature and start thinking altruistically? That's my question to you.
You want to take that?
You know, I'm not profound enough to decide which way it should happen. All I wanted to raise was the consciousness amongst a group like this, that we need to think that if we want this to happen, what are the triggers that need to be activated? Like Srikkanth said, it's all about energy and which way you're directing your energies to. At this point of time, it seems that companies are concerned about their position on the Sensex or the New York Stock Exchange, depending on where they're listed. If that is going to be the model by which it works, then clearly these bigger and more altruistic objectives are going to fall by the wayside.
So
Thank you. Yes.
My question from the morning session is not still unanswered. It is about ethics, corruption, and nexus. Don't you think we should seriously look at these issues? Because these are some of the root causes why it is not going to the sustainable mode at all. We need to have an objective look at it and see how we can plug those loopholes.
Absolutely. We'll make that the last, sorry, you have.
Sir, I agree fully with Mr. Dilip Cherian with what he spoke about the two triggers, fear and opportunity, and Mr. Shankar Vanavarayar on young people needing direction and leadership. I have a suggestion to make that industries individually and the CII as a body, I think they should come out with a more altruistic framework to network with NGOs, educational institutions, and vocational training providers, especially to tap the resources at the grassroots level. Because there are a lot of fresh and innovative ideas which come up from these NGOs and educational institutions. So maybe the prospects of it can be discussed here.
Good point. Thank you very much. I think we'll stop there and start from Shankar. Make a 1-minute comment.
I'll try in a minute. I'd like to just take a gentleman who asked a question here and the lady there. I personally think we should look at clearly these as opportunities. If there is no solar in rural or it's cost capital high, or the lady who said there of whether it should be inclusive by law or by nature and thought, I think clearly there's a business opportunity here. And businesses will get there. Young people will start getting creative and innovative simply because there's opportunity. The framework, yes, more opportunity in terms of the framework of knowledge, availability, resources can be, awareness can be created. Then I'm sure these two things will happen. The best thing if it's done naturally, as an environment, as an ecosystem where people can thrive on it. And one has to agree with Mr. Srikkanth in that aspect of energy. There is so much of energy. I'm just saying this 500 million should be energy, not aggression. Should be aspiration, be inspired aspiration, which is inclusive or sustainable or whatever. So that is left to us to derive what we want to be, right? Because I think there's a clear, strong possibility of things going right, but also wrong. So we really have to take that into our hand and take it as a potential and possibility, not as a problem.
Thank you, Shankar. Dilip, your closing comments.
My closing comments are that we have to recognize that we're living in a world which is imbalanced also because there is a huge change that's happening, which many of you sitting here may be seeing in bits and pieces. And we are creating an enormously disbalanced world. All of us who are sitting here are part of that disbalance. There is this huge gulf between the haves having much, much, much more and the haves having much, much, much less. And I think that this is not sustainable in any political dimension. And somebody asked the question about political change, and today's politics is still not reflecting this aspect. And this aspect, unfortunately, will come home to some of us in a fairly violent, ununderstandable, and tragically transformative manner. I would say, as people sitting at the top echelons of society, we should be worried, be very, very worried. I'm sorry, I don't want to be more positive than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dilip. Warning sound from him. Srikkanth, your closing comments?
Nothing, sir, actually.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's the best word that all of us have heard from Srikkanth today, right? Vineeta?
Well, I come from a non-corporate world, clearly. And so what you're saying to me, what you're saying today makes sense, but it doesn't make all the sense. While it's very important to have energy, but your energy is directed towards yourself, and if you continue with the energy directed towards yourself, you have only fear and opportunity to be your motivating triggers. What kind of people are you? What kind of people are you who haven't, in today's day and world, have not looked at beyond fear and beyond business opportunity? Who have not looked at individuals and who have not looked at dignity and of making us an empathetic society? Where are we as human beings? And it is only when we go back and in touch with our humanity that we need to go outside ourselves, and we need to go outside business opportunities and our fear. And that is where I would come in and say there are people, and leprosy is not the only issue. I am standing here for leprosy, but there are hundreds and thousands of issues where we can, you as corporates can make all the difference. And the first difference that you need to make is the difference in mindsets. You touch lives of many, many people. You're not just one person, you're not just one family, but you're a big family. You will touch lots of people, not only directly, but also indirectly. And if you can bring about a change in the values and the mindsets, you would have brought about a change in the way India stands up in the rest of the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Vineeta. And Mr. Sandilya will have the last word.
I thought you'll have the last word, and then Sachin Nankam is going to have the last word. And I think it's very nice to see that at this time, still the hall is full. When I came in the morning, normally in conferences, second session, third session, only 30% are present. So compliments to all of you for the kind of patience you have had to listen to all of us. And I think it's simple. I just want one point on this, that we talked about change, talked about positive thinking, all of us have heard it. I just had kind of a small personal quote of mine. Just now I wrote it down here, scribbled it. If you don't change with your positive thinking a lot of things, and you do it with negative thinking, you will be actually sinking. But if you change and you change your thinking, change it towards the positive thinking with positive energy as a fuel, then you will not only be thriving, but also flying. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. So with that, we come to the end of this session. It is truly a wonderful session. Educative, informative, motivational, and fun. On behalf of all of you, I'd like to thank the panelists and also give them a big round of applause. Shankar, Dilip, Srikkanth, Sandilya. Thank you.